Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're all about the positivity, always about the positivity here on the show. And with me today, I've got a very special guest. He has worked for numerous promotions, and he's done a lot of charity work and helped out in his community. And I'm pleased to welcome him to the show. The one, the only, Dusty Wolfe has joined Wrestling with Heart. Welcome, Dusty, to Wrestling with Heart.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
All right.
Thank you for coming on here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. So tell me about your childhood and upbringing. Where are you from?
I'm originally from San Antonio. Spent a few years in southern Oklahoma. That wasn't by choice. I've got a couple labs. That wasn't by choice. That was because my dad was in the military and so forth. But I'm San Antonian. I grew up here.
Okay. The South.
South there. Yeah, San Antonio.
Yeah, San Antonio.
As far south as you can get. Well, there's a couple 100 miles south of us, but not a lot. We're pretty far. Yeah, we're far south. Yeah.
Yes. Texas is home to a lot of famous wrestlers.
Yeah. Yeah. Big state, and then we had 2, 3 great territories down through the years. And you had Amarillo and the Falks, and then you had Fritz. Fritz himself, I don't think he was huge in helping people beyond the boys themselves, but Joe Blanchard here in San Antonio, he was massive in breaking people in. Talented people, Brody and Hanson, Putski, and guys like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you had Bosch out in Houston, who, like I say, he might not have been major in breaking people in, but you had the places to put people, that would attract talent. And it's amazing some of the guys that have come out of Texas down through the decades.
I know guys like Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, Booker T.
Yep, I had his first match.
Really?
Yeah. Putski broke him and his brother in. Putski had a school for a short time in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I like Ivan, but I'm not sure what Ivan could teach anybody. I mean, Ivan was like 2 holes in the hammer, but he did great with those two for however, whatever. They were naturals. But yeah, I had his first match there in Houston coming out of that school.
They really were just unbelievable
Phenomenal.
athletes, talented.
More naturally, it was just all normal to them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like Sean and a few others like me. I worked hard to learn how to do anything. And these other guys, it was just like show them done, and it kind of makes me mad.
Well, just watching these guys, they move just so carelessly.
It's natural.
It flows. Do you remember your first exposure to professional wrestling? Was it something you grew up watching?
Yeah. That little bit of time my dad was still at home in my youth, he was a huge roller derby fan. And as a kid in the mid 60s through the mid 70s, you didn't see any national TV wrestling. It was all local, all syndicated, all on that local station. And in those days, the TVs would be packaged with roller derby 1 hour and wrestling the next hour, or vice versa. There was like a 2 hour package, and it was unavoidable. And he would watch the roller derby and would usually stick around and watch the rest. And that's what hooked me. Was I liked the roller derby, but then something about the wrestling, just like, this is great. I don't, sometimes I don't even know what I'm watching at 6, 7 years old, but this is great. Yeah, that's how I got started. First territory I remember seeing would have been McGurk's. I couldn't tell you any real details about it. I mean, I remember seeing Watts and Hodge and Dale Lewis, Sputnik, a couple other guys like that. And then the next territory I remember seeing was Amarillo. And that's when I really got hooked.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What were some of your favorites growing up?
Oh, man, the Fonks, Murdoch, Harley, Jose Lothario. Jose Lothario was like the ultimate babyface. I liked Red Bastille. A lot of people don't even remember that name, but I remember liking Red Bastine a lot. I was a fan of, trying to think who else I was a fan of. Those were the top guys. I was always scared by Mulligan, even once I was in the business of working with him. Mulligan was just impressive for whatever reason. He was like the villain, the heel in my world. Mulligan was it. Now, those are the guys that I remember right off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Being impressed. So yeah.
At what point did you go, I want to do this?
Oh, I don't know. I was a teenager. Sometime in my teen years, I played baseball a bit, and I lost my chances of doing anything past high school in baseball because I got sick. And I went to college a little bit, graduated high school, went to college for a little bit, was working. And I just said, now or never. I was 18. You know, if I'm going to try this, I'm going to try it young. I'm not going to try it when I'm 20, 25, 30, and really undoing some things. So I remember going talking to my mom. I was living on my own by now. And I remember telling my mom because she was big on college. And I'm like, I can always go back to college later if this doesn't work out. I'm only 18. And so I did. I went and began to wonder about that wisdom sometimes, but I did. I find that. And I didn't quit until I was 47.
A long time. I mean,
Long
that
time.
young when you're 17, 18 years old, that's
I had my first match when I was 19.
when you're learning how to the fundamentals, the basics. I mean, it's hard to get down at first because you got to go
It
through.
is. It was for me. Like I said, I saw guys like we talked about it a minute ago, Booker or Sean. Those guys, I can remember just telling them something, and it was just flowed from them. Me, I'm that guy that when the old timers say, sometimes it takes you 4 or 5 years to learn your craft. I was a poster child for that. And about 2 years in, I could listen to you, and as long as you could work, we could do well. But if you weren't very accomplished, I stuck up a couple of buildings those couple the first couple 3 years. I was learning. Yeah. And it is the psychology is the hardest part.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even have psychology today, but in those days everything was psychology. Why you would do something, why you didn't do something, when you did it, that was the hardest part for me.
But you're able to put together the basics. You got
Yeah,
trained.
yeah.
Was there anything you took away from your trainers that you still apply to today? That pieces of advice that
Psychology,
stuck with you? Was it
the
psychology?
psychology. Why you do what you do, when you do it, timing. Uh, don't give everything right now. Save a little, especially like when I teach in the classroom. If I was to give every bit of detail that I'm discussing, whatever subject it may be today, what am I going to do next class? Whereas if I split it up, now I've got two classes and that sort of thing. Just the psychology of how you present your product, that sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think a lot of people understand that, but just in general, they really don't.
Do you watch the current product at all today?
I haven't even tried recently. Every few months, I used to try to watch 20, 30 minutes of it, and I've seen some tremendous athletes, but I don't see anything I know. I don't understand what they're doing.
Hmm.
I don't even see outside of the ladies. Sometimes I'll see the ladies actually working what I would consider an angle over a period of time. But the guys, I see a guy like Kenny Omega hit his opponent with his own finish 7 times before he pins the guy. And I'm like, what are they doing? I just can't get into it. I mean, it's not a knock on those guys. Those guys, some of them are tremendous athletes.
Yeah, they're really talented. It's unbelievable
But I just
how.
can't. That I'll never knock. They do things I would have never even thought of. Well, that's a good idea. Let me do that. I would have never even. No, I'm not breaking my neck. No, that's not happening. And I see them do it, and it's like nothing to them. And but they don't do anything that draws you in like we were talking about a minute ago, psychology draws you in. So what am I going to follow with? It's all about today. It's all about this match. I want to see how many stars I can get on some invented rating system. I want to make sure everybody on the internet talks about me instead of selling tickets and pay-per-view buys. That's what I see happening. I have not watched a full show in years. I haven't.
When was the last one you remember watching?
I don't. Probably that Raw reunion where they brought all the old timers back in Dallas. How
Mm-hmm.
many every years that's been? That's probably the only one of the last one I watched from beginning to end. Yeah.
Hmm. Now you made your debut in the WWE as Dusty Wolfe in
Mm-hmm.
1987.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about what made you know, how you got signed, any memories
Never
of
signed
working with.
anything. I worked there for 6 years and never signed anything.
Really?
Yeah, we didn't sign contracts. I mean, the top guys signed contracts, but it was nothing like what they have today. Today they have
Hmm.
dollars and they have downsides and they have bonuses and all of that. In those days, guys would sign a contract. You're going to work for me exclusively. Uh, you'll make $100 a night or whatever it was minimum, and that's it. I mean, that was all you. That's it. And then if they had a uh, merchandising agreement, they signed a merchandising agreement, and that was all anybody ever signed. I never signed anything. 6 years. I never, nothing. A tax form or something like that, maybe, because we were in a state where they had to do that, or a commission. The state required it. Other than that, no. I picked up the phone, called Terry Garvin, and asked for a job. Simple as that.
Hmm.
And they said, "Well, we'll come in. We'll take a look at you." They brought me in. They put me part time for about a year. Then I spent the better part of the next 2 years at least half time, some parts full time. Then come around 90, 91, I went back to about halftime. I was making about half the towns. And in my last year, I wasn't really getting many bookings. Last year, in middle of 92, middle of 93, really was. That's when they were having all the troubles. And the lower end guys were suffering. And I didn't see a lot of work. And in middle of 90, summer of 93, it's just not, there's nobody left to put over. There's no place for me left. We're not making any money. So I left. But no, I hear about all the contracts and all the deals in the contracts and all that. I wouldn't understand them. I have 2 grad degrees and I wouldn't understand those contracts.
We were part of the golden era of WWE back when
Yep.
Hogan was there and Andre, Macho Man. What was it like being around them, or were you around them at all?
Well, I was around all of them. Some of them I knew from the territory days. You gotta realize I'd been in the business like 5 years when I got there, and I'd already worked Kansas City. I'd already worked Florida. I'd already worked Puerto Rico. I'd already worked Dallas. I'd already worked Memphis. I'd worked some on the independent scene. I had worked a little bit by the time I got there. So some of the guys already knew. The others, I had no clue who they were. They didn't know who I was. In my mind, I knew my spot as far as I'm underneath, you're on top. I'm not going to try to compete with you, but we're all employees. And so I'll treat you with the respect I hope you treat me with. And if you do in return, I made a lot of friends that way. And then there's the guys that, they had that cliquish mentality. And because they didn't treat me with the same respect, so I just stayed away from them. Dealt with them when I needed to, and otherwise went my own way. But as far as being starstruck by the talent, no, that wasn't an issue. What amazed me, and if you want to call it starstruck was the production and the size of the production. In all the territories I mentioned, Dallas probably had the most advanced technology of all of them. Most of them like 1, 2 cameras, 2 lights, and that sort of thing, right? And one guy at ringside announcing and so forth. Then you go to New York and there's cameras everywhere and there's
Mhm.
lights everywhere, and
It's Hollywood.
it's just yes, especially for late '80s when they're still trying to figure out what works for the wrestling business
Hmm.
as far as the Hollywood and the smoking and mirrors and whatever. And they were always trying to do something here. That amazed me. That was just like, this is there's 20 and 25 cameras all around this building and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Now, when you're traveling, you're going to different cities, towns. Who are some of your favorite buddies that you were on the road with during this time?
Ricky Martel, Lanny Poffo, Marty, when he wasn't so wild, when he was wild then, but if he get too wild, I'll go off somewhere else. But I love Marty. It's a shame seeing some of the things happen recently. But Ricky Martel, Lanny Poffo was great to travel with because Lanny was always thinking. Lanny was always, even if it was out there, in my world, it was some things that would make you think. Uh, who else did I like to travel with? I think those are the main ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you later worked for WCW as well.
Uh-huh.
What was it like
Yeah.
working there?
That was a completely different world. Whereas when you worked for the WWF, that was WWF then. You worked for Vince, and he had his lieutenants, and they answered to him. You answered to them, but you knew it all began and ended one place. Regardless of what kind of human being he may be, he turned out to have been, whatever, he was the boss. So there was never any real question of anything. You go to WCW, the inmates were running the asylum. You've probably heard that before, and it's true. You had your Bischoff, or you had Kevin, or you had whoever. In my time, it was Bischoff, Kevin, and so came on later. They're the ones up here, and they're the ones that you're supposed to answer to, but they were answering to the talent. And by then, it didn't matter. I wasn't going to get a push anyway. I had already been put in that position, and you do the job. So that was all I was going to do. And those paydays were going to stay the same. So that was all I was worried about. You guys go over here and create the chaos all you want. I'm here. I signed my check. I'm good. But it was a completely different world. It really was.
Really?
In one way, it was easier because with the fence, I could end up weeks without a day off. And with WCW, there were times that I would show up for a week, never open my bag because they would book more people than they needed for every show, whether it was TV or a house show. And as long as you were booked, told to be there, you got paid. And if you didn't work, so I'm like, I had no issue stealing money. It wasn't stealing. They were gladly letting us steal.
Over the course of your career, did you have anybody you enjoyed working with?
Oh, that whole crew that Vince had, well, with a few exceptions, like the Dynamites in the world. That whole crew, you learned. They were so good. That first crew that I was in there with, they were all workers. They didn't come out of the wrestling schools and so forth. They were workers. You learned how to work. So you go through that list. I enjoyed them all. Uh, Tracy Smothers, who came along later in my career. I love working with Tracy. Some people talk bad about Tommy Rich, but Tommy Rich, you could have a tremendous match with. You weren't going to have a technical match. You weren't going to get 5 stars from the smart marks, but you could have the people, that sort of thing. Trying to think. My lab is driving me nuts. I'm trying to think who else is. There's a few others. There's some guys that you would have never heard of on the independent scene that they were good talents. They just never left home. But as far as top guys, yeah, those guys. I I think one of the best workers I ever worked with, and he never gets enough credit, is Martel. I mentioned him a minute ago.
Mm-hmm.
Martel was tremendous. He was Tito DiBiase Hennig level, and he doesn't get mentioned in the same voice as those guys enough.
Yeah, definitely one of the good ones for sure.
Roger Kirby's a guy that when I was learning was a tremendous worker, a great teacher up there in the Central States, up there in Kansas City. Dickie Murdoch. Dickie Murdoch, the guy learned more about working with Dickie than some whole groups of people. Because Dickie was one of those, he was such a natural that he could go half speed and still steal the show. Yeah. I think that's pretty much the list.
Yeah, it's a really good list. You worked with all the big stars.
Most of them, I was blessed, even if it was just a 2 to 3 minute match on TV. I was there.
Mhm. Let's switch gears and talk about some of the stuff you've done outside of wrestling. I know you've done a lot of charity work and uh, have a really good story. It's very inspiring that you wanted to share.
My wife's the big charity worker. I'm the support system. I mean, I have to give her credit. My wife's an attorney, and I went back. First of all, I went back to school, and she made sure I could do what I needed to do in order to transition out of the wrestling business and actually provide. And so I did. And once I was established in the classroom, she's like, I want to go back to school. And I'm like, okay, it's only fair. And I started looking at like her transcripts and all her records, whatever. She had enough hours for like 2 degrees, but she had never finished anything. So I took her to the college I had just graduated from, introduced her to the one of the big wigs there that I was friends with, helped her. And she went in, got her criminal degree, and then when she got out of the criminal degree, she says, I want a law degree. And I'm like, well, that's a lot of work. I'm here for you if that's what you want. Oh, that's what I want. And I want to be able to help people. And I'm, okay. So once she got her law degree, one of the first things she did, she went to work for a foundation here in town that helps uh, the poor among us that are abuse survivors get their protective orders, get their divorces, uh, fix whatever child situations may be taking place. And beyond that, she has hooked up with a couple of groups that help educate these young, usually, once in a while there's a man coming home, but it's usually the ladies of the county.
Hmm.
And after about a year of that, she left, opened up her own law office, in which she practices law like any other lawyer. But she opened up the Women's Legal Empowerment Center, which is basically doing the same thing that she was doing when she was working for the other folks. And that is, if you're indigent but you need help, she takes you on and gets you the protective orders, gets you your divorce, shows you how to file whatever you need for your children, et cetera, et cetera. Puts you in contact with the different groups here in town that you may or may not know about that will help you with your education, um, technical training, that sort of thing. Uh, she has a wellness group that she works with, in which every week they go to the homeless shelter for the ladies here in Bexar County and do yoga and self help of that nature. And it's not a huge thing. It's really, I know, I mean, it's once a week we do it, but there's already been 2 or 3 of those young ladies that have come out of there and gone back to school, that sort of thing, because they realize that they can. So she's the hero. I'm just the support system. I'm here, and when she says, I need you to go somewhere with me because whatever reason, I go. Uh, she, whatever, I just do whatever she tells me, basically. I have to say yes to
But
it.
you're a part of the operation. You're
Yeah,
working
I'm
there.
part of the operation. I don't want to sound like I'm bragging too much because it's her baby, and she works hard at it. But yeah, I'm an enabler, I guess is good a term as anything. I don't know if it would be easier for her or more difficult for her, but I do everything I can to make it easier for her to keep everything running and keep everything rolling. Sometimes I just sign the papers and tell her later, oh, I did for you, like banking or whatever, yeah, it's taken care of, and that sort of thing. But as far as the meetings or whatever, those are her. Those are all
Mm.
her. Yeah.
Well, what is it about helping out in the community that gives you the most joy?
We all deserve a chance. Whether we squander that chance or whether we take full advantage of that chance is strictly on us. But everybody deserves that chance. And there are those among us that have been raised their entire lives to not understand that. They come out of the system in which female abuse or spousal abuse, family abuse is normal. And somebody's got to step in and say, hey, that can change. Somebody's got to step in and say, hey, here's a way. That's why in college, that's part of the reason I went to when I was getting my teaching degree, I decided to go towards college because public schools, they have to, and they're not all worried about what the future may bring. The majority of those that are in college, they're looking for a future. And so, even though it's only one class a semester for them, it, I can help that little piece for them to move forward for whatever it is their hope. Because some of them they didn't know they could, and they still went into school with the unknown. And I firmly know how that works. Going back to school when I was in my mid late 40s, uh, so I try to. This is my little bit. This is my payback as far as
Mm-hmm.
what I do. Uh, as I say, the teaching's not. In some ways, the teaching is not as important as what she's doing, and what I try to help her with. In some ways, I think maybe it's every bit as important because I can help in small ways, larger numbers. Whereas in small numbers, she can help in larger ways. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes,
Okay. And so that to me, that's important because we all need that chance. We all need that opportunity. I wouldn't be where I'm at if I didn't have the opportunities.
yes. Everybody deserves that same right to be successful in this world.
We may not be completely created equal, but we are created with the ability to be equal, is the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But when we start taking away factors that allow us to make that move forward, something's wrong. And I know I can't fix it in so many cases, but I can do my part over here. That's all I'm looking to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because if my wife helps half a dozen women this year and I have a few hundred students, at least part of those folks are going to fulfill their dreams. And if they do, who knows who they're going to help in the future? And that's all we really can do,
Mm-hmm.
unless you just have unlimited wealth and unlimited reach, and all. And we don't. So many of us don't have that. So that's all you can do is touch who you can, and hope they do the same. Yeah.
What subjects do you teach?
History, U.S. history, uh, Texas and federal government, world civ. Do I teach anything else? I know I've got so many. World civilization, world civ. Like I said, U.S. history, Texas government, federal government. That's it. I've got different schools, and then I've got the 2 degrees, and yeah, those are the classes.
Did the students ever find out that you once were a wrestler?
Very rarely. I've been teaching now I've been in the classroom itself 10 years. And every once in a while, the conversation will go around to where I'm not gonna lie to them. So I have to admit that, yeah, that's how I know so and so. That's why I was in such and such a state or a country or whatever. Twice it has happened to where the student has come in. 99% of them are too young to ever remember what I did. Yeah, I realize how many years ago this was.
Mm-hmm.
But their dad or their uncle or something. And I've had that happen twice. One of them came in, my uncle says he remembers you. And I'm like, well, with my youth, that may not be the greatest thing to know, right? He's, oh no, you were right, blah, blah, blah. And then the other time, it was basically the same thing, except he said like my dad or my granddad. And he said right in the beginning of class. And I said, yeah. And next thing I know, they all have their devices out. They're all YouTubing. And I'm like, all right, I'll see everybody next class because I'd lost the class, which is part of the reason I just don't do it. Because I don't need all answering all the questions, and I don't need all that.
They can Google it or go on YouTube and find out.
If they were that concerned, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion is, you like me or you don't like me in the classroom, according to what I'm doing, not according to who I might have been. And a lot of my coworkers don't know. Some do, and when they gossip, others learn. But I've only told 2 or 3 out of dozens. Literally, there's the faculty there and the history faculty and the government faculty literally numbers 30 40, maybe 55, 60 people. I've only told 2 or 3.
Oh, okay.
I went out and earned the degrees, and whether I'm any good or not, uh, whatever I have earned, I want it to be on the basis of what I'm doing, not my past.
Exactly. Exactly.
Not because you're some fan, not necessarily me, but you're a wrestling fan. I keep it. I don't want any of that. I want none of that.
I gotcha.
Yeah,
Well, Dusty, this has been wonderful getting the chance to speak with
I
you. It
appreciate
means
it.
a lot to
Yeah,
me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. Where can
yeah.
people find more about you on social media?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter or X or whatever Musk calls it today. At Rancho Wolf. Uh, my wife, you can find her and her group through my Facebook because she's right there. She makes sure everybody knows she's my wife. So you can catch me on social media through those 2 forums. I don't go. I spend too much time on those 2 forums. I don't have time for others. I just don't. But I'm right there daily.
Well, again, I just want to say thank you, and you're more than
Thank you,
welcome to come back.
thank you, especially for letting me talk about what my wife has going on.
Yeah.
Because it's so important. Even if it doesn't really reach out to you, maybe it opens up somebody's thinking process that catches an eye. So, maybe I need to make some changes. And if that's the case, even if it's only 1 or 2, we've succeeded.
Yeah, definitely about making a difference. And so
Mhm.
that's the important thing.
Yep, yep.
All right. Well, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Take care.
Yes, you too.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.